So, welcome to the first of our tutorials on how to make an inventory within making an RPG. There were a few things we took care of outside of this lesson. Let's just go through them. First is actually a bit of housekeeping. Back when we created the mana spell, where we had this fireball, you might have noticed when you're playing through that, let's just jump in and test. You might have noticed that when you fire it, it doesn't actually hurt these goblins. And that was a simple fix that was pointed out. So all you need to do is go into Edit on this fireball, go into Physics, and turn Collidable on. By default, effects are not collidable, so they won't collide with enemies when you fire them. So now we jump in, shoot it, and it's going to hit these enemies. Great. So the other thing we took care of is I went ahead and everything that I want to be something that you actually pick up, something that will go inside your inventory. I put these out as templates that are looked at in each of these different loot logic cubes. So we go inside these loot logic cubes, and you're going to see, for instance, knife is now an in-world object. We'll have the sword, shield, and axe are in-world objects as well. So that is all. That's all been taken care of. So these all been put out. Now might be a good time to pause your video and do this yourself. Take out all the items you want to be loot that is actually going to be something you want to display in your inventory, such as items you can equip, and bring them out into this world and make them all templates so that we can then reference these with our making of an inventory. So first thing we're going to do. Now I've already kind of cheated and done this with all of our equipment items that we're going to have as inventory, so I'm just going to do it on one because I've done it on all the others, and that is the scepter. So the first thing I want to do is right now with each of our equipment items, what you probably see and what you have is when not equipped and not attached, then when interacted, it equip me. So this will make it so that the character, the player, when they interact with this object, will equip this object. Instead of automatically equipping this object, we want to instead add it to the player's inventory. So let's go ahead and click on Equip and hit B to get out of the Equip folder. And within Objects, you're going to see this Inventories folder. So go ahead and open that up, and we are going to instead choose to Pick Up Me. Instead of Equip Me, it's Pick Up Me. We've had the same line of code in all the other items, so we don't have to worry about putting it elsewhere. So let's just jump in and take a look at that. So we're just going to punch these goblins, get all these items, and I love it when I get up to a high enough level where I can just smoke these guys. All right, so I'm picking all these up, and I have a little display here that also displays them. So you see I'm picking all these items up, and this apple is still just a healing item. But you see that I'm not actually equipping them anymore. They're going into my inventory, which is kind of default built into Project Spark, and we can reference that in a nice way. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and added a line of code here inside of our player brain, which is just for each of inventory, display it name, screen top left. This is just a simple bit of display logic that just shows all the inventory items. We're going to explain for each of at a later time, so just hang with us for a few minutes and we'll get to that, but this is all you need to know for the debug line that I'm running. First thing I want to do is let's go ahead and create a new logic cube here. And this new logic cube will be our inventory logic cube. I'm going to go ahead and color this, let's say orange. And then I'm going to rename this inventory. And we want to also make this a template. Now, I like to have my inventory in its separate logic cube. You could, of course, put it in a page in a player or somewhere else on the player, but it's nice to put these kind of separate, bigger pieces into their own logic cubes so you can kind of compartmentalize things. So we're going to have this all here, and we're just going to, from the outset, we're going to go ahead and add this brain into the player. So just like we did our mana brain, we're going to go ahead and choose to add brain. let's go to in-world picker and choose this inventory brain. And we are going to add it to channel. Let's see, I think I want to call this channel menus, and I think I might have already created that. Yes, menus. So add this to channel menus, and to slot, we're going to call the slot it's being added to. Well, it is an inventory, so we're going to go ahead and call it inventory. So we're adding this brain to channel menus to slot inventory inside of our player. So that's already been added. So now let's actually put stuff within here. The first thing we're going to take care of is just displaying all the items of your inventory and just cycling between them and equipping them. That's kind of the most basic type of inventory selector you can create. And we'll build on top of this in upcoming tutorials. But let's go ahead and start out with creating a new number variable. So we'll go to values here, number, and I already created this, but it's a number variable called inventory selection. So I'm going to delete that and let's just recreate it so we're all on the same page. So inventory selection. And I want it to start at 0 actually, so that's fine. I don't need to set it at a starting number. 0 is fine, but I want to clamp this. Clamp is another type of function. We've run into a function ceiling before that can be found under the math folder, and there's this other function clamp that does what you think it might do. It will clamp this number variable between a minimum and a maximum number, so it can move anywhere within the range of this minimum and maximum number. Really useful so that, especially with selection and moving things around, it'll make it so you can't go past some sort of minimum and maximum set. So we're going to start with a, go to modifiers, you can choose minimum. The minimum we're going to start out with is 0. And then a maximum of what we can do actually is go to objects, inventory, and then choose inventory, and then go to compare, count. And then you have to, so this might seem a bit weird, but you actually have to take this inventory selection and put it at the very end or somewhere within here, because it needs to understand that you're clamping a minimum and maximum for this number. So this number equals a minimum and maximum of that number. So now that that is set, we can go ahead and put in some controls here. So we're going to say when right bumper is pressed, then we are going to have this inventory selection. We're going to increment it or increase it by 1. Go ahead and copy this line, and then we choose when left bumper is pressed, then inventory selection decrease or decrement by 1. So left and right bumper are now our ways to cycle through this inventory. Now let's go ahead and actually do the cycling bit of it, where we actually are looking for all of the items in the inventory. So we're going to start with a started to tile. So when started to inventory selection, then we go to compare, and you're going to see on the second page this change thing. So this is looking for basically when the number inventory selection has changed, which is great because whenever this is changed up or down, it probably means we want to display something new. So underneath of that, we are then going to bring in this tile that we used a bit earlier for each of, and we are going to choose inventory. So for each of, just think of it as if you have a set of objects, for each of pulls in the information on all of the things in the set of objects. Just imagine you have a shopping cart, and you could ask for apples, or you could ask for everything in that shopping cart, and that's what for each of does. So it's pulling in everything that's in your inventory, and then allows you to sort through all the information in your inventory and do certain things with them. So for each of inventory, so all the inventory has now been pulled in. Once all the inventory has been pulled in, we can use a new tile, go to timing and logic, go over one page, and go to current index. And current index is basically the current placement in this list of all of these objects that something appears in. So an object set is always ordered between 0 and however many there are in there. So the current index is referenced between 0 and the maximum number of objects in the inventory that you have. We are going to say that when it is equal to inventory selection, which is basically saying when it's equal to the number that I've selected up here, then we are going to say, have another child line. So we have a lot of child lines here. This is a parent line of this child line, of this child line, of that child line, and so on. So we are going to have a new object variable. We're going to call it inventory, which I've already created here. So I'll delete that again, and we'll just type that in, inventory. And we're going to say inventory equals it. And again, it refers to the most recent thing on the win side. So the most recent thing on the win side is whatever the item was at that current index that is equal to the inventory selection number. And now let's just go ahead and display something here. So let's just display inventory at screen bottom center. And I think this is enough for us to go back into test mode and see how that does. So let's jump into test. Let's punch some goblins here. So let's just punch them all out. All right, now let's pick up. Actually, to make it a bit easier to show, I'm just going to pick up one of each item. So let's pick up one dagger, one axe, one coin, and one shield. So now let's start hitting left and right bumper. And this is going to cycle between all these items. So it cycles between the knife, the axe, the coin, and the shield. Those have all been cycled between. So now this is calling these objects, and we can view them all. So the next step is to actually equip whatever item you're viewing. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's jump back in here, and let's add two other things here. So we're going to say on after inventory equals it, then we're going to say equip inventory. But because we're cycling between a lot of different objects, if we already have something equipped, we want to unequip that and put it back in our inventory. So we want to have another line here before we define what inventory is and equip the inventory. We want to just basically say unequip, then under modifiers you're going to see to inventory. And that's going to unequip whatever we have currently equipped to our inventory, and then we'll equip whatever our inventory is set as. Now I also just want to, let's just display one other thing here. Let's go ahead and display our inventory selection number as well. So we're going to display that screen top right, large font, and let's make it go to colors. Let's make the color red just so it stands out a bit. And this is just for debugging, so we don't have to really worry about this looking nice or anything. Let's jump back into test. So we see a red 0. That's good. Number starting with 0. So let's go ahead and pick up a few of these. So let's pick up a stone sword. Let's pick up the coin, the dagger. We have an axe, and we have a shield. So we have five items we can switch between. So let's start switching. So I now have the axe equipped. It's showing the axe as well. It's showing the number up there as 1. That's looking great. 2, the sword, or sorry, the knife. We have that equipped. 3 is the stone sword. 4 is the coin. But then we can't go up to 5. You know, we try going up to 5, and it kind of glitches out and brings us back down to 4. Even though we had 5 items that we picked up, we can only get to 4. You're going to understand the issue we have here by looking up at the top left that shows everything we have in our inventory. And now you notice the coin isn't in our inventory. We go down, and the knife isn't in our inventory anymore. We go down, and the shield isn't in our inventory. So the problem here is the fact that once we equip an item, it's no longer in our inventory, and we're only looking for whatever's in our inventory to display that. So we have a mismatch here, where there are a set of items that are in our inventory, but our item that is equipped is outside of those. So that will make it so we can't seamlessly switch between all 5 items. We can only get to basically whatever 4 items aren't currently equipped in this list. And what's more is this ordering also changes when we're switching between these items. So this makes it really confusing and really wouldn't make for a great inventory system. So let's go ahead and fix all of that. How to fix that is by using a new type of variable that we're going to introduce called object sets. So let's go back to our equipment here. Let's jump in here and let's see what we're doing. So when this item is interacted with, then I pick up that item and add it to my inventory. Let's do one other thing in all of these items. We're going to say global, go to values and go to object set. And let's call an object set on player, which I've already created and I don't seem to be able to delete. So you're just going to have to type in on player, and I will go ahead and select it here. Global on player, increment by, go over here to me. So what this does is this adds this object into a newly defined object set. Whenever this object has been interacted with and picked up, it's also added to this object set. So think of it as we have created a new shopping cart that we've defined, and we get to choose what goes in it. So rather than just the shopping cart being only what's in the inventory, this shopping cart is whatever we want to choose to put in it. So this shopping cart is called on player, and we increment it by this item. Now it seems weird, you've only ever seen things incremented by numbers, but an object set you can increment it by actual objects, which is pretty cool. And I did this with all these different items already. So we go inside one of them and you'll see that our axe has global on player increment by me, and you'll see it with all of the other items. So they all have that. Let's go ahead and go into our inventory and let's reference that instead of what we're currently referencing, which is just the default inventory. So we're instead going to say the max count of the global object set called on player. So that's going to be the maximum of our clamp. It's also, instead of for each of inventory, we're going to say for each of global on player. So this also, just like before, it goes, instead of going through our inventory, it goes through everything that is in this object set. And those are the only things we need to change. Let's go ahead and jump back into test. So let's punch some goblins. Alright, let's go ahead and pick up a few of these. So we have, let's get that knife. Alright, so we have 3 items. That's enough to play around with. So coin, sword, knife. And you'll see 1, 2, 3. So 3 items, we can go between them. But the last thing is we go to 0, and I want 0 to be kind of my unequipped state. Right now, 0 keeps the knife in my hand. So let's just add one more thing here, where we just also say when inventory selection is equal to 0, then we're going to unequip whatever we currently have equipped to our inventory. And we're also going to say that this object variable inventory is equal to, go to objects, go over a page, and let's say nothing. If you don't set this, then it'll just carry over whatever your last object was that this was equal to. Now let's go one more time into test. And great, we got those goblins taken care of. Let's pick up a few of these items. So looks like we also have a little sword here, or dagger here I should say. And now we can switch between these. So we have 0, 1 is the coin, 2 is the knife, 3 is the stone sword, and 4 is the shield. So we go back down to 3, 2, 1, and 0. I have nothing, and everything's back in my inventory. So we have the starts of an inventory. In the next tutorial, we're going to really pay attention to displaying this inventory and actually having sort of an inventory selection screen. And then we're going to get into kind of inventory management.